So we've put in the bond around the perimeter of the house, and now we need to put in the structural framing um, at the first floor. Before we can put the framing in, we have to think about how are we going to transfer the loads from the second floor framing and the walls to the uh, first floor. Which walls are we going to use as bearing walls? And I've highlighted what I believe to be the appropriate bearing walls in this condition or situation in, I think, what is called magenta. So those are our bearing walls, and that's transferring the loads down to the basement. And so now, when we get to the basement, underneath these bearing walls, we're going to put some steel beams. And that's what this tutorial is about, is simply putting in the steel beams. And they're generally centered on the walls. So I'm going to put the first one in, structure, beam, and it's a steel beam. And we have one loaded, and it's fine to use that, W12 by 26. And I'm just going to come over here to the center of the wall because I want the steel beam to be centered on that wall and put it right there. Okay. So now I have a steel beam somewhere. I don't know where yet. So I'm going to take a look at where I put that in. I didn't pay attention to the location of that steel beam. All I did was pay attention to that it was centered on this wall. Now, the top of the steel beam needs to line up with the top of the basement wall. So we can measure what that distance is from the top of the wall to the top of the steel beam, and it's 1 foot 1.5 inches. So I'll come over here and Control C. I'm going to copy that, and then I will click on the beam, and I'm going to say that uh, we can try uh, Control V, and I'll put a minus in front of that. And then I'll copy that because it has the minus sign, Control C, and then I will Control V again. And let's see what happens to that steel beam. Look at what it did. It went right to the correct location as far as the elevation of where I want that beam to be. I will put a 2x6 sill plate on top of that, and then my 2x12 floor joist will sit on top of that. So I have plenty of room for the uh, structural members, but we're putting in right now just the steel beams. So I have one under that wall. Now I want to put one under this wall. So there's a couple ways I can do that. If I bring my section line down to here and go back to that section, I can click on this guy and say copy from where, center line of this wall, to where, center line of this wall. Now I have another steel beam in underneath the other wall that I want it to be underneath. And let's take a look here at, this happens to be a um, place where I need a steel beam as well. So let's do that. Let's come back through this. Well, we can do it from here still. All right. So now I'm going to grab this steel beam, simply click on it, and say copy from where. I'm going to copy it from the center line of this wall. And notice I went really high to the top because I wanted to get to be able to select the center line of the wall. If I pick down here, then I wouldn't have the center line of the wall necessarily to select. So now I've got my 3 steel beams underneath these walls in the correct location. I'll go back to the first floor. I've got this beam, and this beam. I have no more beams going from front to back or vertical. So now I need to put my horizontal beams in. So again, I'll come over to the beam, but this time when I take a look at the orientation of that, let's try this one. I always get confused about which one to pick there. So I think it might be the Z instead of the Y, but nonetheless, we'll put it in. I'll just click on the center of here and click over to there. Now let's move that section and we'll go to it and see where that beam was placed. And yeah, it wasn't placed in the right location. So I'll click on the beam and I'll say that my Z offset is supposed to be 0, minus 1.5, and my Y offset supposed to be 0. So I got that one correct. Okay, let's go back to the first floor. So now we've put the steel beam in here. Now I want to put another one under the next wall. So we go back to that section again. And I'm going to click on that, copy, from where? From the center line of here to where? To the center line of here. So now I have another steel beam in where I want it to be. So we've put in this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, and I just have one more to go, which is this guy. Back to this section. And interesting. All right, back to the first floor because the section is, well, really the section should be, what am I doing wrong here? Yeah, I put one here. Okay, so the third one, I need one by the stairs and I guess I don't have one by the stairs yet. So let's go take a look at that. Yeah, that's the one I don't have yet. So I'm going to click on this guy, copy, from where? Center line of this wall to where? Center line of this wall. So now I have all of my steel beams located where I want them to be. I'm in my structural plans now, first floor of the structural plans. I'm going to change the view resolution so that I can see the steel beams because I can't, I'm sorry, my view range. I'm going to change the view range so that I can see my steel beams. So VR, right now I'm cutting 1 foot above the floor level, first floor level, and I don't want to cut through there. I want to cut, let's see, minus 2 feet. Let's see what happens if I say minus 2 feet below the first floor, and I'll apply that. And sure enough, now I can see my steel beams. All right. I don't need to see these cabinets. So I'm going to go VG for visibility graphics. And this is why I put a lot of that stuff on casework. So now that I can turn it off. And I have some generic models. I can hover over it and it'll pop up and tell me what that is. So back to VG again, and I'll come down to generic models and uncheck that. It's much like layers in AutoCAD. And the last thing I have is this guy right here, which is mechanical equipment. So again, VG, mechanical equipment. I will uncheck that because I don't want it visible in this view. And there we go. So now I know that this beam has to come all the way across to here. Not there, it can't go into the beam. All right, let's go back a little bit more here. Now it looks like I turned it. It looks like I changed the slope of that beam. So this is what I want both ends to be. Control C. Right now I've got it at 0. So let's click on that, Control V, and now my beam should be straight again. So I want to be careful to grab the arrows and bring it back to here. Okay. And the same thing with this guy. I want to grab the arrow, not the dot, bring him back to here. Okay. Fairly good for now. All right. And this guy has to sit on the basement wall, so we'll bring him back right there. Whoops, I don't know what happened. Use that undo command. Grab that arrow again and just pull him down to right there. And for some reason, I'm losing it. So we'll go back to undo again. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here. So we'll grab the arrow and just pull it down a little bit. Still works. Pull it down a little bit more. Still works. Pull it down a little bit more. Okay. So that's basically approximately what I'm looking for in my steel beams. Now these guys, I want to go all the way across to here. And I want it to go across to here. And This one, it only has to go underneath that wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going over to my underlays and I'm going to say, show me the first floor as an underlay. Now I can see the first floor, which shows me where I want that uh, steel beam to go to. So I'm going to grab this arrow. It doesn't have, whoops, let's see, it doesn't have to go any farther than right there. Let's take it all the way to the end of the wall. Okay, so that looks good. And these guys don't really need to go any farther than this wall. All right, let's bring this guy back a little bit. So now you can see, oh, see, and I can see the problem here is this steel beam can't go through the stairs. So I'll take it back to there for now, okay? And things look good, don't they? Let's compare to my quick sketch here. I have this beam in, yep. I have this beam in, yep, and he does go all the way to there, yep. I have this beam, Then I change the direction across here, yeah, that's good. That's good. And this guy only goes to this wall right here. So I can save that. And let's go to our 3D view. I'm going to go to my 3D views and make a new one. So I'm going to duplicate this view because I don't want to lose the one that I have. And I'll rename it to first floor. I always use caps, or I like to use caps anyway. First floor framing. And then I'll take a look at this from any elevation, front, back, left, or right. I can't see my section box right now, so I'll turn it on. There it is. And this is going to allow me to cut through the house right below the first floor. So you can see the level. I went just a little bit below the first floor. And let's go back to a three-dimensional view now. And there we go. Now you can see my bond is already in and my steel beams are there. I have to put some columns in, obviously. This might be a problem here. We'll worry about that. I have to be able to get this down the stairs without hitting that steel beam. And so I think it looks pretty good for now. We put the basics in and then we go back in and fine tune everything. But now I have my steel beams in where I want them to be. In the next tutorial, we'll be putting in my floor joists using the beam system feature of Revit, which is a great tool for that. So that's putting in your steel beams.